Now, this is our second session. This is Mind the Gap, Fostering Diversity and Equality. So we're going to take an in-depth look at how an inclusive and equitable workforce makes business sense and how it can be achieved in the Scottish sports broadcasting industry. How can we tap into local communities to create that diverse workforce? Using that unplugged talent creates a better environment and better business. How do we set up the communication with local groups as well as the companies that are already making this happen? Well, answering some of these points, we have Timi, give me a pronunciation, Adegunwa. You said it better than me, as you would. And you're the main person at Black Scot, founder and chair, a non-profit dynamic organisation committed to elevating black excellence in Scotland and beyond. And we also have EMG's Group Environmental, Social and Governance Director, Rohan Mitchell. Warm welcome to you both. Welcome to Glasgow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Timi, tell us briefly, first of all, about Black Scot.
Hi, thank you. First thing, before I go into my brief, I would like to say thank you to QTV, Lucy, Gareth, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. I never knew something like this is happening here, so thank you. My name is Timi. I work in tech. I've always worked in tech. I've worked over 20 years of my life in tech, and that's what actually brought about Black Scot. Every time I go into an office, I'm the only black woman. I'm the only woman. And when I moved on to Scotland from England, I realized that there is a space to encourage more people into technology, and that's what Black Scot is about. We use leverage on technology to promote equity and diversity. And the way we do it is to create awareness. And on the back of that, we mentor, we train, to give them the confidence to go out there and tap into the connections and opportunity that they can get to, either in the business or in career.
And how is it working out?
It's slow. Slow because, not because the skills are not there, not because we don't have the talent, but because we are lacking opportunities like this to connect with organizations that could want to work with us. We are lucky to have people like QTV to identify that there is a niche here that we can actually start promoting, but we're doing well. Last year we're very happy with our numbers. We placed people at BBC and Sky, and this year we are hoping that we can increase the percentage of what we did last year, so we're quite happy.
And what about you, everyone? How do you work with groups like? I presume you work with groups like Black Scot.
Yeah, not in Scotland, but I think from the EMG Gravity Media perspective, it's external partnerships and our internal pathways, that we're creating. For both businesses, we have external outreach with people like Mama Youth. And then we have the Global Academy. That they are all based in the south. But for us, I think we're open to further partnerships, and it's great to meet Timi. I said, I think we've got some opportunities this year because we don't have a huge base in Scotland, but we do some really high profile events here, whether it's Six Nations, whether it's the Champions Europa League, and the Scottish Opens, and this year the main Open here. So I think that's something that we're conscious of, and it's how do we make our industry more diverse and more inclusive.
Yeah, and how are what is the diversity of your crews at the moment?
I think we can be honest here and say, we know, I've been in the industry for a long time, and it's not diverse. It's not diverse enough. But this is where we're really conscious of, and we're trying to break down those barriers, make the industry a more inclusive place to work. For us, we have our sort of ESG values, that we run through the business. They're at the heart of everything, and we have a thing called diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and that belonging is that people be able to come to work as their authentic selves, And that's something, you know, we roll out across the business, and we know it's, you know, things are changing. We are increasing our diversity stats across the business, but it's a slow process. And
But how are you doing that?
by being, you know, having more outreach, by having people with the opportunities. So from everyone from different backgrounds, you know, as we said before, you know, we're not looking at people like with university degrees. You know, our Tech Assist program, we take anyone with no experience at all, and they will learn about all the different disciplines we have across the business, and then, you know, they can go into different disciplines. And then I think it's really important when we're talking about that is having that pathway from junior to senior to HDR supervisor, all of those things. You know, there isn't that training outside. So we're really concentrating on how do we develop our talent from inside. You know, we have a dedicated technical training manager that looks at the pathway for all of our employees. And this has been rolling out over the last year or so, how we can put that progression in for people. So, you know, it is a slow process, but I think we should be honest, you know, it's all within us to actually make the industry more diverse.
It makes business sense as well. Everybody's talking about budgets have been and money's been a major topic of discussion this evening, but actually it makes business sense to have a diverse workforce.
For sure.
How are you going to help him, Timi, be more diverse? And
What we currently do, we have a program called the Pathfinders. We take our members, people from the Black and minority community, we take them to the sites of our partners. And that is to kind of build a bridge. So we take them there maybe for a day. They do some job shadowing, some question and answers, mini CV reviews, and they'll do some mostly it's just to build the confidence of people from the minority community so that when they hear that there are opportunities here, they can actually take the opportunity up and apply. Not just apply, but they now know what the business looks like, what they do, what their plans in terms of diversity is like, and they can begin to build their confidence to say, actually, I'm needed here. And I think one of our success stories is sitting here with me when we had that trip and she had the opportunity to work with BBC. That is one approach that we take. We also have master classes, you know, when we identify opportunities from yourselves, we organize master classes or workshops. We bring our members, and then we invite someone like yourself to come and speak, to tell them about the opportunities in the business, in the organization. Again, building that connection to make sure that they are aware of those opportunities and they can take it up.
do you find it difficult to crew in Scotland generally?
I think, you know, we've discussed, you know, in 22, there was a crewing issue across the world, you know, and we had it, you know, and now, you know, the lack of opportunities is really apparent. You know, we have, I think, across the whole global business, we probably have 4,000 or 5,000 freelancers that work with us, like globally, and it's a balancing act of how can we support our freelancers, but also, you know, grow the talent from inside, because, you know, unfortunately, you know, when I started, they just, you know, all of the apprenticeships just stopped, you know, and so, you know, we've been in this cycle, and now we're said, right, okay, from our perspective, we've really got to train our own talent, you know, going forward. So it's something that we're very conscious of.
And is finance, budget, is that, how big a factor is that? Do you have the finances to start getting more diverse crews?
I think, you know, we're looking for a diverse crew. It's not a financial thing, but, you know, it was a really interesting comment. I think the last panel was saying about the industry is changing, it's in flux, and you know, we've seen in the industry change, you know, from 30 years to how it's going now. You know, the more multi-skilled personnel we need, with the proliferation of remote production. Having a multi-skilled person, you know, and even from the production side, by using like a simplified production model, they have, you know, before you would have maybe 3 or 4 people doing the role of one operator now. So operator, director, they do the graphics, they do the replay. So the industry does change, and we have to be adaptable for it. And I think, you know, we have to be conscious of offering, you know, the most support we can.
So, Timi, what would you say are the barriers? What are the barriers to entry, I suppose, into the OB work that might involve maybe a lot of travel or for people from lower social economic communities?
I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes it's funding, but sometimes it's just not knowing where to look, or not even knowing the opportunity exists somewhere. Yeah. Because if they do, I can guarantee you'll fill half of your vacancies in no time. But they don't know. And first thing we need to do is to create that awareness. And the second thing is, we're talking about outside broadcast. They need to travel. They need to, you know, look for the funding to go where it is. And maybe sometimes it's because they don't see people that look like them. You know, they need to see that, right, as my daughter heard about the Queen's passing on TV at school. Because...
So she heard about her?
Sorry?
What did she hear about?
The Queen. The passing of the Queen. Oh, the passing. Yeah. Okay. Because she saw a black-skinned woman talking about it at school. And she remembered, she came home and told me about it. Sometimes we need those faces on screen and behind the screen to give them that confidence. So quite a number of barriers in the black and minority ethnic communities, but we can breach them.
You can't be it if you can't see it. It's a big
and I also think, you know, one of the things, you know, we've worked with Rise and just actually doing the roadshows, workshops, but at some primary school level to say, actually, you know, there's opportunities out there because you know, you're right, not, you know, to try to get to the broader spectrum of communities to say, you know, there are opportunities out here that you can come, that you can work behind the camera, you can work in front of the camera. And actually saying, you know, there are pathways that people can do.
But Timi's saying for this outreach, for this going out to primary schools, you need people like her. You need because the kids need to see people
exactly
like them taking these sessions.
And that takes investment, you know, and you know it's trying to build, you know, within, you know, the whole ecosystem that we have, that we become self-supporting, because you're right, at some point there will be, you know, we need new talent to come in. And I completely get, you know, the panel when they're saying there is a, you know, you may be able to, you know, get the training, but then how do you progress? How do you make that? And that's a really important thing, that we as an industry, we make it inclusive, and we give everyone the same equity that they can push on into other roles.
Have you got a good example of one of your group that has done really well, and do they go out and maybe speak to other groups as mentors?
Yes, we do. Right now, I kind of understand when everybody's saying that, well, they need to train people up, they need to get the experience. What we have done, the approach we have taken, is to create labs. We have labs, and we get organizations to support with that. So that is one way some of our members...
Well, what do you mean by labs?
All right, okay, so I work in cybersecurity. So for me to get hands-on, to go out there and apply for jobs, I need to get my hands dirty. So we have virtual labs, and then I simulate events. How is this going to... If this happens, how am I going to counter it? Because I don't want anyone to attack my organization. So labs like that are created. And then
it's like a virtual
labs. Yeah. And so we bring our members together, we train them. That gives them the opportunity and experience they need to go out there and look for jobs, which has proven to be successful for us. We get partners like Cisco Academy and ISC2 supporting us to do that. Now, this is what I'm thinking. If we're talking about diversity of programs, there are just me and her, maybe somebody else that looks like me. Maybe we can diversify into festivals. There is one big black festival in London every year, Notting Hill Carnival. We thought about getting sponsors on board and do a broadcast where we can have members or students or apprenticeship learn whilst they are doing the outside broadcast to that diverse audience. Someone like me, I've not been to the Notting Hill Carnival in 10 years. I want to see it again. Can we do that? It's an example. Never know.
It's just like getting it out there, isn't it?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that will help them to get the experience. But they need, I don't know the business of our broadcast. I'm going to put my hands up and say that. I'm a tech person. I know the business of what I do at Black Scot, but I don't know what goes behind the scene to make that happen.
I mean, do minority communities, individuals come to you and say, I want to work in sports broadcasting?
All the time. All the time. They just want to, because wherever they have come from, they probably have experience over there, but they can't translate that into the United Kingdom workforce.
Over to you, Rohan.
Yeah, no, you're right. Well, this is one of the things. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to come up, because we don't have a base here in Scotland, but we do work in here, and it's about building relationships and say, right, what can we do to help? Because the stuff that we do up here, we do need support, and we're all about fostering a better, diverse, inclusive community. Whether that's internally or externally.
So the Global Academy that you run, what percentage of diversity do you have there?
Well, the Global Academy is actually a UTC based out in Hayes, and we're one of the partners with Sky and IMG and Sunset Vine, and so we take on this technical pathway, because I don't know if you're aware, but there was supposed to be a T level, which is equivalent to an A level media and broadcast course. It's supposed to start last year. It's been deferred to 24 to start there. So, but we were really keen to actually say, that's a real something that we can get behind and work with young kids that come in, that want to get into the business, and that's really one opportunity we can do. They're 16 years old. It's right. Okay. Well, we can offer them some experience, and this is something that we and a lot of other companies, we're well behind.
Well, maybe we could get all these companies together, and they could set up something up here.
Yeah.
That would be great. I have candidates.
And I think this is part of it. We understand that having the opportunities, and this is where where I've spoken with Lucy before, that there are limited opportunities. So we do have we have the jobs that we do. I'm sure there's that there are certain avenues we can discuss.
I mean, would you say that the onus is more on diversity than on recruiting younger people, or are they mutually exclusive? Or
for us, it's about fostering that the workplace where everyone as we all go back to our diversity, inclusion, and belonging that we have. This is what we want to do. We want to have people from all walks of life working with us, because that diversity brings the diversity of thought between us, and and this is what we want. We want it from our leaders and from our from people that are starting with us.
I mean, it's good to hear. We do hear a lot of companies saying that kind of thing, because sometimes they think, well, this is the right thing, but then following it through, and if there's no budget, then that's the first thing, as Lucy said, that's the first thing that goes. That's my cynical head on, and you get that.
Yeah. But I think from us, we have we have a dedicated role that I'm focused on, and across the business, about how we can impact positively from an environmental and a social standpoint.
And Timi, what kind of progress would you say you've made since you set up Black Scot?
Connecting with organizations like UTV, fantastic opportunities for us. It's giving us visibility. last year we got a contract from the Scottish government to deliver some initiatives, which have then given us also more access to people and organization peeping in to say, oh, what are you all about? Just like I'm here to talk about what we do. It is just important to be placed in front of, decision makers, to
the
say,
right people.
Right people, to say, here is a team, and they can help you meet your diversity goals. What is your budget? What are you willing to do? And you're right. Most of the time, they talk about these things, and then when it comes to actually implementing it, and then it slows down. If you really want equity, and some inclusion, you really need to do more than just talking about it, putting in the action. And I'm glad to hear that that's what you do, that's what you're about. Because then it gives me and people like myself that do what I do to give us the confidence to say, actually, there is business to be done here.
Yeah, sure.
And although you say the confidence has improved in the minority community, is it still an issue?
It is. I'm just going to be honest. It's very it's obvious sometimes, but not so much to people that really don't know what the business of inclusion is about, because sometimes we're talking about equity in this sense, and then somebody else comes up with another agenda, and then before you know it, the whole idea is messed up. There is progress. I'm going to say yes to that, but it's slow. It is slow.
Okay, we'll leave it there for the moment. Take another few questions out in our audience. If you can make the microphone available, anybody?
So I think for young managers, it's particularly difficult to find the resources how to foster these environments. Would you have any recommendations of where people should look? And maybe I'm speaking from experience, but being responsible for maybe a large team in particular, it's really hard if you maybe don't have the role models around you to find that organically. So how would you recommend that we sort of pioneer that as individuals within the industry?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Fantastic. If you look well, you always find the answer that you're looking for. It is just, again, the connection. If you ask me today, then you say, I need somebody that's working in telecoms, or somebody in cyber, or somebody in media, I can find you someone. But they don't have that platform like I do. So it's just a matter of you asking me. If I don't know, I know someone in my community that will know them. And they will gladly work with you. Absolutely. Just reach out.
And I think, it's for us, it's about training as well, training managers, because that's a really important thing. It's about how we develop talent, and that's a big part, because everyone needs training, and for us, it's right. Okay, well, how do we develop all of our talent going forward? And that could be managers, then they could be tech people, operations, whatever.
Any more questions out there? Oh, we've got one in the front here.
Hi, my question's for both of you. What do you think industries can do to become more attractive for people of colour, and more specifically like women in colour?
Well, this is a start. Well, thank you for that. This is the start. We need to network more. If you notice, I invited quite a number of people to this event, but I was able to drag her here because she doesn't have a choice. The first thing we need to do is to connect or look for that information. Information is out there. I was lucky. Catherine fished me out on LinkedIn, and then today I'm talking to QTV. So the first thing we need to do is to connect, see how we can create that supportive, environment. And then on the back of that, we start looking, which is what I always do, for opportunities to, collaborate or get sponsors. That is what I would do. That's the approach that I would do. Now, there have been some talk about around here that you really don't need education. You really don't need education. If we can get hands-on experience, people trained up quickly, maybe we need to create some labs. Maybe we need to go and meet the government. Anything to just create that, action. We need deliverables. We don't just want to talk about it, but then it starts from you, it starts from me, all of us working together.
And I think we have to be open. So we have to make this industry more attractive. Because that's the problem. You walk into a room and they're all over 40, over 50 white-haired males.
Yeah, and Heather said that earlier on. The culture is not actually all that attractive.
No. And I think the culture is training, and it's really important for allies to be there as well and say, look, we're open to have a diversity of thought in this industry. And I think that's the allies, and I count myself as one, is a really important stance that we have to take. We have to call stuff out when we see stuff that's wrong, because for years and years.
Do you think people are still reluctant to do that?
Some people are, but I think we have to be strong in our beliefs and say, okay, this I'm happy to call this out.
What's your experience? Would you like to work in sports broadcasting?
Yeah, I'd love to work. Well, that's great. As you said, there's not that much. Okay, I'll start again. I'd like to work in sports and do broadcasting and reporting, but as you kind of said, there's not that much representation of women of colour being in front of the camera. Like, you don't go into a news channel and see a brown or black woman. And that can be quite isolating sometimes, to think that maybe the thing that you'd like to do, there's not a space for you to do it. And maybe that even if you were qualified or had all the education, you wouldn't be, thought about to do the job just because of your skin colour or, your sexuality or anything like that. I think there's a lot of stuff like that goes around. So,
yeah, I understand. I know the feeling. I've been there, and I keep saying, the more people, if I see a program talking about me or my culture or something that I can relate with all the time, then I can get interested because somebody like me is talking about people like me. So we need more of that on screen, outside, inside broadcasts. It's just the way it is.
There was one more question. Oh, wait a minute. It's coming.
I just wanted to touch on that, the kind of resistance of the culture in the workplace with people who aren't allies. I just last week had an experience working in production where I was working. For me personally, I have learned, and I do embrace walking into a room. I'm the only black woman doing my job in my department, or I don't mind seeing a bunch of middle-aged white men. It's fine if they're allies, humans are humans, it's fine. However, I was in a situation where it was the type that you don't want to be around, very derogatory towards women and anybody else. It was really shocking. And actually, when you're on the ground and the reality of the situation is, how do you tackle that? And when you're already being the kind of victim of that type of derogatory comments, and it wasn't directed at me, but the person I was working with was being horrible about women. I take that on. I'm a woman. I'm going to take that on. I'm already processing all of that. How do you do with someone like that? They're still getting work. Yeah. How do we call it
I think one of the things we've done, and this year, and I think it was a really important thing, is that we released our code of conduct to all of our internal employees, but also to all the freelancers. So you have to meet this level, and if you're not, if you're anywhere like that, we have zero tolerance with that. And if you don't sign up to it, then we're not going to be using you. And we have this ongoing at the moment because we have to take a stance at some time and say, right, that's enough. When we've done our sort of active bystander training, that's to give people the confidence to call things out. And I think it's really important that we should not shy away from this. If you see the bad behaviour, we should be in a position to call that out. And I think that that's going to help make a change.
But it's hard for someone in your position to call that out in case you're viewed as something else, as a troublemaker, and we're not using her again. There's a...
Yeah. It's sometimes you put you in a position that is dicey. You really don't want to be the person that is, complaining all the time. But if you don't speak up, it's going to continue.
I think it's more, I shouldn't have to be be the one to do it because
I know.
everyone should see that.
Mhm.
So therefore, why does it just have to be me who has to be the one to do it? Especially when it's very obvious. I mean, with that situation, it's the kind of the term I'm sure we've all heard, boys club. He'll cover for each other. So then in that case, because I was the outside one, if this gets flagged, I'm the one that it's all very obvious.
Yeah.
So it's just what is being done, because again, in the freelance world, it is hard to reach everybody. We all had the training to do. I sat and clicked through my video for the training. This person sat and went, I'm not doing that type of crap. Like what, I don't know, like just in your experience, what has been raised, how do we tackle that type of behavior?
I think, but being able to call stuff out, and you're right, I don't have the learned experience, that over half of the half of the audience here there, because I saw it last week even for a completely separate thing with a male talking down to a female who's in a level of authority, and it's like that. I called it out straight away. What you're doing, and they were and that's and it happens every day, and from us, we have to say, we have to call it out, and we have to be, from our leadership point of view, everyone has to be behind it and say, right, okay, we can't act like that anymore.
It's just a bit of schooling, and if we have allies like yourselves, calling them out and say you need to stop that, and if they don't, there should be consequences. That's just it.
Just one more question over there, just as a add-on on the same theme, I think.
It's just more of an add-on, really. Just that there have been instances where people have been like sexist, racist, but as a freelancer, there's not necessarily a clear avenue of where to take it to.
Yeah.
Normally, you go to your unit manager, and you assume they're going to pass it on, but that's not always the case. I mean, obviously, if you were a staff member, you go to HR about it, but you just kind of hope that it's going to get passed on. But quite often, it doesn't. You see these individuals.
Yeah.
Kind of on other jobs and stuff. It just makes it tricky.
Yeah, and also, from when I was a freelance perspective, when I was a freelancer, sometimes you don't want to. It's very difficult to put your hand up because you don't want to be called out. You don't want to be, because you need to be booked again. You've got to do your 5, 6, 7, 8 days a month, and it's a really difficult thing. I completely understand that, but I think as an industry and a wider society, we just need to say, we all have to be out in that position to be able to call this sort of stuff out.
Over to Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. So, I mean, just to speak to that, I think it's a really good point. I think, if you're a freelancer and you're working for a particular company, it's incumbent upon that company to state their values, the culture and behaviours that they expect, not only of their staff, but of their freelancers as well. And where those values, somebody lets down that culture or values with their behaviour, then either you're strong enough to say, however talented that person is, they're not coming back, or you have the challenging conversation with them. You say, that's not how we want people to operate in our company, whether as a freelancer or as a staff member. So I think there's a responsibility on us, and there's a responsibility on you to be that type of employer, irrespective of the status of the person that's working for you.
As a woman,
Yep, please.
As a woman to speak out, if you've been in that kind of situation, it's the comments, the feeling that you'll just be looked at, she's just a woman, she's time of month, she's got the kids are going to trouble, it's as a woman, it's not good. It makes you nervous. It doesn't give you confidence, because you feel you're being categorised.
Yeah, I mean, as a man, that's difficult to understand. But I think as an employer of however many freelancers every week, but 50 full-time staff, I have a greater understanding of how challenging that can be. But as I said in my opening remarks, it's about transparency and trust and empathy with one another, and with the person on the other side of the table. as a freelancer, a female freelancer, let's say for the sake of argument, will have to trust that I, as an employer, stand by my values, culture, and behaviours, and will live up to those. And if I don't, then you should call me out on that, as somebody did earlier on this week.
And guys, it goes back to the culture thing and the environment. Is it a particularly attractive environment for women and other diverse groups to work in? You know? And what I would say from my own experiences when I was at the BBC, started the BBC 30 years ago, and I was staff, there's no way I would have called out anything because I was far too terrified about being the only woman in the room and about being labelled as a troublemaker or sacked. So I'd like to think that 30 years on, surely things are a bit better, whereas employers are a bit more, you know, accessible now to be able to talk to. What's your world like, Tom?
I was just going to say, I think when I mentioned it earlier on about that code of conduct, I think once we've got values and we've got behaviours, and they're really important, but then it's expectations on site. And if the crew know what that is, and if they're not then adhering to it, then there has to be consequences. And I think you mentioned it earlier on, but they need to know what those consequences are right from the off, because then you can look in the mirror and say, they knew exactly what they were getting into, they knew exactly what the outcome of that conversation or that behaviour or that whatever they did, and then because of that, we are now able to then say, you knew what it was, I'm sorry, you're not getting employed. And we have to have a zero tolerance, otherwise there's no future. Yeah. We can all sit and talk about it and say, and look, clearly I haven't had a lot of experience of it, but I'm fully on board with creating a culture that allows everyone to have an opportunity. And I think it's really, really important that we have that level of understanding from every person in the workforce. They know what is expected and they know the consequences and the fallout of not doing it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just agreeing with him.
Thank you very much, Rohan and Timi. Thank you very much indeed. Give them a round of applause. Thank you. Folks, we have covered an awful lot of ground tonight.